Howdy folks, it is Scanner here, which you know, you're watching the channel. And thank you so much for joining us in this video. Today we're joined by Spiridon, who many of you will become familiar with Spiridon's work over hopefully the coming days as this mighty tome, the Trench Crusade Rule Book, arrives in your house. Spiridon is the person who designed this book and has very graciously agreed to talk to us about not just the project, but also him and his history doing this. So, Spiridon, how did you actually get into this industry? It seems like a very unique job.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. I have quite, I don't know what you want to call it, I wouldn't even call it a career, but I've done a couple of things in the past. I mean, you usually start with stuff like, usually there was no such thing back then, like 20, 25 years ago, like a creative industry. I feel like that only started after 2010 or something like that. I mean, the golden age of concept art, for example, most people say was in around 2015. So this is quite young still, I would say, at least from what I lived. Um, but I used to try different things before, and usually for most people of my generation, at least, the creative jobs were something that you used to do on the side of something that supported you. Being an artist was never an option for my parents, who were, I mean, Greek parents, quite conservatives. They're like, art makes no money, learn something good. So I tried business school for 2 years. It was absolutely horrible. And then I went to learn graphic design. And because that was the closest that I knew for creativity, that also at the same time was an office job. And also allowed me to, how can I say, not live through the torments of hierarchy of a company. I could be a freelancer. I could just do everything without a boss and just clients. And if I don't like a client, I just walk away from the client, you know?
Yeah.
Um, but that weren't the first years of my life. I needed to make money, so I worked for a couple of companies. One of them was um, a publisher that makes tourist media. So we did like books for hiking for the region here in Germany where I live, and that came very handy later for Trench Crusade. I kind of talked about that in my little video. It was this thing about learning how to fit as much information into as little space as possible, right? And that is essentially what making a rule book is. So I did this for 8 years, and then I decided to become a freelancer because my son was born, and for almost a year I didn't really see him. I was just working at the office. I saw him in the morning when I got up. Then we woke up together, and then I put him to bed when I came home. So at some point I realized that his life was just running away from me. I didn't see
Yeah.
anything. All these special moments, I didn't see them. So I decided to become a freelancer, which obviously people like my parents didn't like. Like I told you, conservative, and they're like, "What, freelancer? You have a child now, whatever, yeah, all that stuff, right?" And they shut up very fast because I made way more money as a freelancer because I'm not stupid. I set up an environment in which I can work as a freelancer all like at least almost like the whole year when my son was born. I was working on finding clients that would hire me when I'm stepping out of the company, right? And that's what happened. And it went really, really well. And it also allowed me to work as an illustrator, finally, and be an artist for a while. And through that, I met a lot of people, a lot of folks that were exceptional artists, way better than I am. And I'm very, very much about efficiency. So when I realized that I'm not really getting better in what I'm doing, like I was okay, right? But I wasn't getting there like the people that I was friends with.
Yeah.
And I was there's this meme of do you know this meme of the dwarf that is like chopping through like two dwarfs essentially like digging in like a side view like a through like two tunnels, and one of the dwarfs is going back because and the meme says sometimes it's good to give up, and you see like a balrog on the end
Yeah.
where one dwarf is still digging. I feel that's what I did. That's why I ended my artistic career and decided to opt in for working with artists who are better at what I'm doing by essentially combining my passion, which is art, with my day job, which is graphic design. And that was when I made my first art book with Even Mel Amundsen. And it was a huge success on Kickstarter. And from that, I built on this. And that was in 2017. And ever since, that has been my career. And since I don't like just doing one thing, I also try to like cultivate the creative community by making like this magazine. It was called Firestarter, and it was a magazine that was sponsored by all kinds of companies like Wacom and Procreate and others, and they gave me money to essentially print the magazine and give it out at creative events for free. And it was full of interviews, and I highlighted like all of these events that were around the world because networking was really important. And through this thing that I did, I met all kinds of people, and that made my job as a publisher much easier.
Yeah.
And that was also how I discovered Mike Franchina.
Yeah, through the art connection. You've got a tremendous portfolio of art books that you have worked on. This, from looking at your website, I'm pretty sure this is your first rule book.
It is my first rule book, yes.
How did that come about? Like, what was your reaction when it was like, oh, a rule book?
Yeah, like in the beginning, like I said, I met Mike and I saw what he was doing. I don't remember it being called Trench Crusade back then. It was just a series of characters that he designed, and I was like, because this was what I did with Evan Amundsen. He made like a sketch per day for a year, and he built this immense world in the process. The world of Taming, like written Tegn, which is a Norwegian word for like drawing or a sign. And he's a really good world builder, right? So I got a taste for world builders, for people who decided to create their own IP and create this massive thing with all of these people in there and the cultures and all of that. So from there, I also worked with other artists that did stuff like that, right? Like Alex Consad with Obliscura and many more. And the work is always better when you enjoy it. Right?
Yeah.
It was something that I liked to do, so I put more time into it to make it like the best possible work. And that was also when I discovered Mike Franchina's work. I told him like, Mike, this what you're doing there, it needs to be an art book. You realize that, right? And he's like, yeah, I really want to do that. And we had a couple of chats, and then we didn't talk for years. And eventually, Viktor Pushkarev, who's did like the graphic design, the calligraphy in there, like the symbols and all of that, like added quite a few bits of the flavor to the book. He told me like, "Have you seen this Trench Crusade thing?" And I'm like, "Never heard of it." And he's like, "It's from Mike Franchina." I'm like, "Oh, Mike!" So he's the guy. Yeah. And it's this game. And I was like, well, "What game?" And he's like, "It's like Warhammer." I'm like, "Oh yeah, okay." And at the time, I wasn't really interested because, listen, Warhammer for me, growing up in the 80s and 90s in Germany, that was something that usually the German kids would do, not the immigrant kids, because they had money and they could afford all of that because Warhammer was just something that was absolutely expensive. And on top of it, my father would have been like, "Oh, what are you doing? And you don't play with that stuff. It's dolls or whatever, Like I told you, conservative." And and the thing is that that through this question of Victor for the first time, I looked closer. And I saw that, and I was like, this is interesting. So I contacted Mike, and I told him, I think you need Victor. He can create a really good logo for you. He worked on many books with me, and to me, he's a prodigy. He's absolutely amazing at what he's doing. Driven, always over-delivers, always does more than you ask for because he's just into it. And that is the best way to do something. Like I told you, if you like the work, it gets better. And they agreed, and they wanted to work with him and have him first make a couple of things, and then he went deeper into it. And then eventually he told me that they are looking for a book designer. So he pulled me into that. And we had an initial conversation, and they were like, "Oh, so what are you doing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm an art book guy, right? Like I usually I used to work a lot with text when I did the tourism stuff, but this is like something new. And the thing is, the first time I worked on the book and I got all this text, it felt very familiar. Even though I never made a rule book, the process of working with typography that much to that extent, because usually when you have an art book, you have like, I don't know, like a picture and maybe some text on the side, right? Like most art books have some comment from the artist, or if it's in a concept art book from a game or something like that, then it's a bit more. But this felt different. This was more like, this was a stronger synergy between the content of the game and also the flavor added by the images.
Yes.
And that was, I made the first chapter and I was like, more. You know, I wanted to do more, and I did all kinds of, I did what Victor did. I over delivered. I made a couple more things, like I was like, this is a variant, this is a variant, this is what we can do. And I think that kind of sealed the deal, and they were like, yeah, we really want to work with you. And from there, that's what happened. And I gotta say, like, rule books, it's fun. It's so much fun.
It's such a different creature to the rule books that I'm used to seeing. It's like you said,
Also,
art books will be picture, tiny bit of text. Rule books will be huge block of text. Here's a dedicated square for art. Yeah. Put it there. But this, the art and the text and the data, it's all flowing in and around each other. It's very beautifully done.
Thank you. It means a lot. I mean, you probably have seen quite a few rule books. I haven't really looked at many. I looked at some books that were like accompanying computer games, right? Like some, I don't know, like a compendium for Red Dead Redemption or something like that. And they are always a bit different because they're all about the information, and usually they're just followed by like full page artwork or something like that, right? Or have like square images in there to show a scene where you can find a treasure or something like this. But this was different because I understood where everybody was coming from, what they wanted from me, what they expected me to do. They explained it very well, but I had no reference in my head. I approached this from a direction where I was like, I think this is, from a pure design standpoint, I was allowed to reinvent this a bit and make it different and not look too much at references. Like, I'm not a rule book designer. Maybe now I am, or let's say I want to be. Yeah, because I certainly want to do more. I hope that more people reach out and ask me to make their rule books. It's just absolutely exciting to me. And working with all of these people also taught me a lot. Like the sessions that I had with Jervis Johnson were mind blowing. He's so good in what he's doing. He gave me so much insight, and he also knew where he had to let go. It was like, you're the designer, you're gonna figure it out. And eventually we did.
Yeah,
that was it.
It's not a surprise. Like Jervis, he was making the games that I was playing when I was a child. So I imagine his understanding of just letting people go to do the thing that they're there to do, that's actually a really important skill that most people will learn over time as you're managing groups of people and working with groups of people. If you hire people who are good and you give them the freedom to be good, you get good work.
Yeah, it's a risk, but it depends on what kind of character you are. Like, are you a control freak and want to micromanage everything, or do you know that some people have strengths that you can source, like you can do something with that, right? And I think he's doing this long enough to know exactly where he had to let go and just let me do my thing. And I didn't know him, right? Like for many, he's a celebrity. I understand that. Like, I told a couple of friends that I'm working with this really inspiring man who's very creative, and they were, who's like Jervis Johnson? They're like, are you fucking crazy? Do you know who that is? He did this and that and all of that. And I'm like, no, he's a nice guy. I met on the thing, you know. So I didn't know most of them. I also didn't know Tuomas, and the only people I really knew from this game were Mike Franchina and Victor, who got me on the project. I didn't know anyone else, and I met all of them, and they are all absolutely peachy. I fucking love them to bits.
It's hilarious because it's such like from my point of view as the wargaming nerd guy, it's like the dream team. It's revisiting my childhood, like all those names who made all those games that I played when I was a kid. Yeah. So it's just hilarious that like the first rulebook you do is probably some of the most prominent and talented people in the industry.
I get that. I understood that as I was going, like it's like this I've that happened to me before. I've been to an event and I met people and then people were like, "So do you know who that is?" And then they tell me and I was like, "Holy shit, I didn't know." But also all these years of building my network and all of that, it really made me absolutely insensitive to something like hero worship or something like that. Like I don't really have that distance. I think I was nervous with two different people in my life to talk to them. There was the second one was Igor Cavalera when I talked to him for an interview for a new art book I was doing for Hans Rüdi Giger, the tribute book I'm doing, right? That I'm working on right now. And having a person there that I'm talking to and he's so nice. And there's always the risk that you meet your hero and he's not the person you were hoping he is. And he was more than that. He was so nice, friendly, understanding, and even though like I felt my breath going faster and stuff, like because I grew up with his music,
Yeah.
and he was amazing. So it's great when that happens. I've also had the opposite happening, and that was where I lost this sensitivity for hero worship. I was like, okay, everybody's just people,
Yeah, everybody's human.
Yeah.
What was your... So there's pretty heavy themes within the world of Trench Crusade, obviously, across things like religion and enduring suffering, and from the writing to some of the imagery can be quite strong.
Yeah.
What was your reaction when you started to see this world that was being explored? Like, how do you feel about the actual world of Trench Crusade itself?
I found it very refreshing. Religion has always been a part of my life, and be it love or hate for it, all kinds of things, and that like the whole spectrum. I wanted to be a priest until I was 16, and I grew up in a Greek Orthodox family, right? And I think I experienced the whole spectrum of all of that. In my teenage years, I've been a full-blown Satanist, doing exploring every aspect of the spectrum. Um, Agnostic. Then I'm ending up being an atheist now. So I'm looking at it with a certain fascination and nostalgia, also, especially because Trench Crusade so well picks up on the South European aspect of it, um, of the East Roman Empire and what became like from the Byzantine Empire, what became that later like the Orthodox Church and all of that. And with Victor, it was a perfect match because that's what he also understood. So Victor and I understand each other very well when it comes to design and what looks good in what way. So we were able to go back and forth looking at the imagery and be inspired by it and figure things out along the way with that. He didn't really often need me for that, but sometimes it was good to also. It's always nice for me to give directions and then see something happening in the way that I wanted it, or even better, especially when you work with a genius like this guy. But looking at Trench Crusade generally, and I've seen it in the past as well when Mike was still posting on Facebook when he was doing, obviously he's a very creative person when it comes to gore.
Yeah.
And it is surprising to see how he makes it look not believable but logical. Like it's like of course they do that because they are like that. And like there are other designers who do that as well, like Björn Huri, for example. He can always explain why the huge troll, for example, collects heads and makes them part of his armor, or why his belt is made of I don't know like shields of the enemies he's killing and stuff. Right? There's always like the design of a character would always give you a bit more insight into where he's coming from and all of that. That is world building, and Mike is a master in that. He's really good at this. So when I'm looking at his work, I'm not very disgusted. It's like looking at Giger's work, right? Like if you look at H.R. Giger's work, you're more fascinated with that. Like you wonder, like sometimes where does that come from? Like holy shit, this is a different kind of creativity. So I don't know. I think many people are disgusted when they look at this, and as they should be. But as I was working with it, I looked at it from a different perspective because I was supposed to draw inspiration from it.
When you're so one of the things that kind of really stood out to me about the book is some of the images, the decision is made to go broad. It's a 2-page print. The images, the prominent element there might be a small text piece or a little element of world building in a quote or some script. How do you decide on those images? Like, what is it about them that makes them go, that's the one?
It's just a gut feeling. It's really just that. It's like this. So there's this thing about Rick Rubin where he was saying that what he gets hired for. And he said that he has no technical knowledge, but the reason why he gets hired is to execute something about executing his taste and he has like he's getting hired for the confidence in executing his taste or something like that. I don't remember the quote directly, but it's pretty much the reason, like the way I decide what I'm doing. I just think it's good that way. I cannot really explain it. It's a gut feeling. I see this anointed guy, and I'm seeing that it's a huge figure with all kinds of details on his arm. I'm seeing a little imp in the front, and I'm seeing a huge dark space where I'm imagining immediately some calligraphy by Victor. And that's what the direction we go. That's just a gut feeling. I think I just know to do that in that moment. I don't think there's also like a wrong decision about this. It's these things really just come down to taste. Like the wrong decision would be if the background was noisy and you cannot read it.
Yeah.
Like the font that you're putting on there. That would be a bad decision. But in this case, like when the parameters are always all right, then you can't really make anything wrong. Then it just comes down to taste.
One of the things that came up when I was talking to Mike a couple of weeks ago, and that you mentioned in the video on your channel where you went through the book, was that you were able to essentially go back sometimes and rework dimensions. Because Mike said when he was making these original images, he wasn't always thinking about the size of things or the shape of things. He was just drawing. And you might have needed something to be a little bit wider for the book. And it was really an advantage that Mike could like just jump back in and do that.
Hardly any artist I ever worked with thought about doing this for a book, what he's doing or she is doing. Like nobody really has been thinking, okay, this will end up in a book one day and be like the thing I'm trying to sell. They're mostly, the only thing that I remember talking to with most artists was something like, I have to make it in square format to fit Instagram or some shit like that, right? So
yeah,
it's mostly about these parameters. Like you're thinking probably not far enough ahead to the situation that you might end up in. That's a whole conversation I keep having with artists at events, for example, when I'm telling them, make sure the resolution is right, make sure you work in a format that works as an A3 print, for example. Think about it, could be a giclée print, so you need 600 dpi sometimes and work bigger. Save your images in RGB, not in CMYK. All these things, I keep telling them for that. And also I made like a couple of videos of these things and how you properly can retouch like the images that you scan when it's like pencil. So, but I would say half of the artists I work with, and Mike is one of them, were absolutely glad for me to tell them that my vision for their image was this setup on this page. So can you please do that? I work with one of these adult artists for hardcover, whose name is Othalam, and she worked in a way that, and that is something that Mike also did, that the borders of the images were always very close to the head. But if you work in full frame in designing an art book, then you need to include 3 millimeters of bleed that is going to be cut away. So if that happens, and I put the image there, and I expand it to the full scale, then what you end up with is, like a cut head.
yeah,
Or the tip of a weapon is cut off and stuff like that. And that was where I was like, Mike, you need to change the format so it fits and it's not going to be cut in the end. And he did all of that. He was working a lot just to please me, which is a privilege that I really like. I understand where it's coming from.
Yeah. They were really focusing on the art book kind of grew in scope and scale over time. It, there was a little bit of a delay in the process, and it was because I'm not sure what the original size of the art book was or the rule book was in their minds, but it wasn't 304, I think, pages.
No, it wasn't.
So there was this like flood of art and information and lore. How this is something that I find interesting because I get intimidated by volume. The start day one of a project is always the worst of anything I'm working on when it's at its murkiest. So how do you look at that level of information, that much art, and what's your first step in the process when it comes to trying to figure out this route to a finished book?
That's the toughest question in my job, because when a client usually approaches me, they're like, "How much for a book?" And how am I supposed to answer that without any information about the book, right? So usually when artists are asking me that, which are mostly my clients, I'm like, "Well, how much for an artwork?" And then they smile because they understand exactly where I'm going for. And I need to know how many pages it's supposed to have. Yeah, and if you don't know, then I need to see what material you have, so I can just make like a quick placement and see what I end up with, so I can have like an estimation of all of that, and then I can tell you how much it is. And that's exactly what we did here. The thing with this project was that in some cases they decided to add elements, because I mean I'm not that familiar with, because I was sitting at the receiving end of everything, right? So, but there were some aspects where they're like, okay, we didn't describe this enough. It needs more description. Or they were like, okay, this needs a bit more flavor. The art really should actually be more prominent. It's a very what do you call it? Like a very popular character, for example, right? That they have that needs to be obviously, for example, the artillery witch couldn't be like that.
Yeah,
It needs to be like that, right? So situations like that essentially were what formed the art book in itself, like this monster that keeps growing and shrinking, and it was a breathing thing in the end. And I was there just trying to fucking tame it with a spear and see
yeah,
where everything could go. Like it's complicated. It's not easy to just say like the book will be that size, especially not when you're working. And that's something that I realized because I didn't know. When you're working with a game, like that has to be tested and all of that, and sometimes things maybe don't work out the way they do,
yeah,
and then someone thinks this aspect of the game actually doesn't work, and then they're like, oh, it's right, and then they fix it or something like that, like you never know.
yeah.
But like I said, I don't know. That's what I'm assuming, because I was at the receiving end, and sometimes it would be like replace this paragraph with this paragraph, and it wasn't like this in the beginning, and then it was like that. So everything moves. Like the rules section, for example, was a complicated matter, because it was not like you had like all these characters and then you puzzle a double page and then just see how much fits on what. It was a flowing text, and whenever an image was put in, the rest moved on, and it got longer and longer with every image. And then sometimes it would be like, okay, so the image changes. This actually we cannot use that image. We use another one, and that was bigger. So everything else moves, including the images in there, and they
Yeah.
need to be at the right space. So about that, I learned so much. I gotta say, making that section of a book is something that I will do a bit differently now, because I realized of how much of a living, breathing thing the rules section of a rule book actually is.
Yeah.
Until the end of everything. So I'm mostly working with placeholders until they know exactly that the rules are set, and then I'm putting in the images, for example, right?
Yeah. That makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. Would you say that would have been the biggest frustration on the project, or the biggest lesson learned?
Yeah, probably that. Yeah, the rules section was that was a monster that I just couldn't tame. I just had to learn to live with it.
Yeah. a degree of letting go.
Oh yeah, yeah. At some point, I was just like, all right, I will just do everything you say and do it that way. And that was also, I think, that was a good call from my side as well, because then the frustration level just goes away, and you just accept the situation as it is. And it also doesn't make you look like an asshole for everybody else to just be always like complaining about something. You know, it's like I really didn't like. I think at some point they might have been worried about um not how can I say, like, maybe a bit worried that I was I don't know, angry with them or something, because they changed things and they saw that I had to touch an element again that I thought was done. But I gotta say, every client is like that. That's why I get hired. I get hired to do the things that they might have not thought about. Like, there were also a couple of aspects in there that where I told them generally about book design, how certain things work, or what we need to look into when it comes to working with the printer, what the printer needs to be mindful of. Like when you place, I don't know, red text on a black background and stuff, and they didn't know what trapping is, for example, where you put like a very thin outline around so you don't have like white flashes, because the like the background of the font actually is non-existent. So when the colors that are put on the, when you have chromatic aberration, like essentially like when the different colors are printed on each other and one is just moving a little bit, suddenly you have like a yellow outline there.
Yeah.
So you use this like certain methods in design to make the page not fail, right? And then I was like, this has to be bold font because it's on a very dark background, and the color bleeds into the font. And then we have to make sure, like, all of these aspects that come into it. It's good to have someone on a project like that, if it's of that size, of 300 pages, that has done this a couple of times before and knows a bit about it. And I'm glad I got to make this now and not 10 years ago, because I would have made a fucked up job of it. Like,
Yeah, you wouldn't have had the skills, the
I would have
established skill set.
failed. Yeah, well, we failed in many aspects of the project. I'm glad I could do it now.
The one thing that kind of stood out to me, I love rule books. I collect all kinds of weird rule books that I can find. I just like reading them the way other people will enjoy reading a novel, I guess. And one of the things that really stood out to me about the way that this one was done is there doesn't appear to have been too many locked in rules from page to page. Each page was accommodating the elements that would end up on the page in the most complementary way to everything. Is that a fair kind of a read? Like, I've noticed sometimes there was one page in particular. I want to say 211.
I'm gonna look. Tell me which one.
From my notes, 211. I'll give the viewers a wee flash on the screen of the page.
With a fly and the...
Yeah, there's a nice little... Yeah, there's that gentleman there in the corner with the forearms.
Yes.
And some of the text box thing is in front and some is behind.
Yeah.
You know, it's just... It doesn't
take... purpose.
Yeah, it doesn't take anything from the image. It doesn't take anything from the text.
Yeah.
It just accommodates everything really well.
Yeah. It's just me playing around and being stupid, you know? I was like, okay, so if I place it there, then the hand is going over the word marker. So what am I doing? Okay, I'm going to copy the element out and put it actually over the thing, you know? And then it worked. And I looked at it and it looked nice. So that's the only reason why I did what I did. And they gave me the freedom to experiment around. Like, I got to say, I don't work much with teams. I usually work maybe with 2 or 3 people. But from all the teams that I've worked with, this was the best experience so far, especially because they just trusted me to know exactly what I was doing. And this, like, pages like this one show exactly that.
Yeah, I originally helped them with the Kickstarter trailer. And I told Mike that I felt what I wanted to do was to not provide any headaches. That was my number one job in working on the trailer, was they wouldn't have to worry about it. Ultimately, you know, and I feel like you're the absolute embodiment of that, where they knew there would be a book, and they knew there was all this information, but you were like the almost like the sieve that everything went through and then falls into place on the other side where it's supposed to be. So that must be a tremendously rewarding feeling.
I was nervous about the result because there were just so many moving aspects in it where I was like, I hope I didn't forget anything. That is the scariest part when you work with a book that has a lot of text, because obviously there's just so much you can make wrong, especially when you have like, I mean, I have like all of these formats that I put in InDesign where I just have like click a bit of text and I'm like, okay, this is going to be red text. This is going to be gray indented text. This is going to be bold, and then some of the ones are like for the whole paragraph, and some are just for words, and some the key always get the keywords in the right format. Like all of these aspects are there, and you feel like you're juggling essentially. It's pretty much 20 different formats, and you still have to make them look cohesive enough that the reader is not overblown, like blown away with the amount of content where they have like to understand, why does this text look like that? This makes no sense, or something like this. So you are nervous about the result in the end because the team also trusts you with that. Like I said, and it was nice to see that they trusted me with something so important, and that it really came out perfect. I still haven't found any errors. That is, I always fuck up something in my books. There's always something. I haven't found anything yet.
Oh, the Trench Crusade community. If they're there, they'll find them.
Sure, it's fine. I mean, I hope they do, and I hope they tell me like if there ever will be some kind of a reprint of the book or something, right? Then I hope that we will get to fix certain things, right? But I personally haven't found anything so far, you know?
One of my personal areas of interest in the book, just looking at the way it's designed, there's some pages that really stood out almost instantly when I was flicking through the book, because they were just so different to every other page, because they were practically blank. It was those.
Oh, you mean like the chapter headers?
Yeah, those divider pages. Now, I might be reading way too much into this, and tell me if I'm wrong and I'm stupid, but I feel like lots of other books would have taken the opportunity to do a full splash picture there. And I'm wondering, I'm wondering if ye consciously didn't do that, so you're not preloading the reader's assumption as to what's coming next.
Yeah, like we have so many full-blown pages, like you just described, like the one with the anointed one. We have that. So how can I calm someone down before the next section comes? By just not giving them anything other than the title and some splashes.
Yeah.
And that's what Victor is great in. He puts attention to certain details, and then less is more.
Yeah, because that handwriting stuff that he's done, that's all handwritten, right?
It's all every bigger quote that you see that is not italic, in the format, all of that is handwritten by Victor.
It's so striking.
So let me see really quick if I can find a good example, because there's, as you know, there is like the headlines, right? So we have headlines like this one here.
Yeah.
That is a font. That is a font that Victor designed. That is me typing it up. That here is handwritten.
Wow.
For example. And the entire book is like that. I'm telling you, he's a madman. He's insane.
He must have worked so much to get everything perfect. My goodness. What else do I have on my little list of questions? So, I can't believe I was going to forget to ask that. I'm curious as to any unique workflows or problem-solving elements that you established that you'll bring forth into your next, like, art book or rulebook project.
Yeah. I mean, I mentioned it earlier. There is this thing about using placeholders as often as I can, where I don't have to get there is this thing about text placing it, and then you format it, and then you look where the images go, and then things change, right? And in between, there are just like little things where you're like balancing certain things. Oh, there's just if I do that, then the next page starts with just one line, and then directly a new paragraph starts, right? Like all of these things have to be balanced out. The team was amazing with that. Like Alexander, I told him so many times, can we make this shorter and just use a different word at the end so it doesn't stand there alone in its own line? And I think I almost broke him with that. But they said yes to everything. Like we did all of that, and that's why I'm like, this is close as perfect as I can get this book to. Like we put so much work into it. So I think I got with making this book, I got more mindful of the process of where the book is supposed to be at the end, and not get too fast ahead of myself because it just results in me having to fix my own mistakes.
Yeah.
Which is wanting to be done. And I'm 42 now. I'm still learning to be a more patient man.
Yeah.
And this book helped.
I don't know if that ever ends. As a 44-year-old, I don't know if we ever have enough patience.
It just results in not giving a fuck. Yeah. I think it just results in not giving a fuck anymore. If I look at my father, for example, he's just like, with 80 something, he's like,
whatever.
Yeah.
What are your favorite pieces of art from the book?
Oh, that's a good question.
It's kind of a mean question. I don't mean you to not highlight anybody's work, but I know what mine are for sure.
No, why? I mean, it's a fair question. I think it's like I don't really have many favorite things in where I'm like in my life. Like I don't have favorite foods or colors or something like that, or movies. I don't really have that. But I can tell you, like, there are certain highlights in the book, which is obviously like this one from Adrian Smith, right?
Yes. The Mammoth Faris is beautiful.
Excellent piece of art. Like this, you just know because I mean, come on, it's Adrian Smith. This is from Mike. This is one of my favorites.
I know everybody I think for people who genuinely get into the game, the most striking image will often be the artillery witch. But I can promise you that for everybody who only has a passing contact with Trench Crusade, that communicant, the tank hunter, that's the one for them.
There's a couple of things I could say about what's coming next up. Still NDA, but it's just a really good character. What I generally liked about the book was whenever I got to work with art that was like this.
Yeah.
And I looked at other rule books later, and I was like, okay, so many people understand that this is actually really the good stuff, like the good art that you can use for something like the writing flowing around it, and it just give the page a certain mood. This is also one of my favorite pages in general because we have a quote here from Victor, we have some like wood cutting style artwork here, and then we go like full color, and it's just really nice text. And information. This Necronomicon thing here also is like a really cool piece. Like I have a lot of pieces and that I really like, but I think most fond I am of this guy here.
Oh yeah, right? The Lord of Tumors.
And the reason is because it almost made my son vomit when he saw that.
The whole drinking.
I was laughing so hard, and then he ran to his mother and was like, ah! Just screaming. And I was like, yes, this is a great book.
It's definitely a very striking image. So you said you felt like the book was as good as you could make it. I was going to ask you in the cold light of delivery if there's anything you'd go back and change or redo, but you seem to be quite happy with the work.
No, I also don't want to. I've spent so much time with it. I'm done with this book. It's done. There's this thing that artists always say about finished but not perfect, and it applies to this one, right? There might be things that could have been done better, but I'm done.
Yeah.
I don't really have much more to give. I could sit there and nitpick and do stuff, but I'm not like a Renaissance artist spending 20 or 25 years on a fresco or something like that, right? I'm not that. It's still just a book, right? And there will be more books in the future. So when I look at this book, it got as good as it can get. And
nice.
I'm proud of the work we did. So I'm fine.
What advice would you have for people who want to do what you do, who would like to enter that area career-wise? What kind of things should they study, maybe, or what the autodidacts? What should they put their minds to?
I love nobody ever really asked me that. Everybody just asked me like, how did you and all of that, but nobody has ever asked me like, what can you tell people who want to do what you do? Because why the fuck would people want to do what I do?
Yep. People
Just
want to
being
do it.
frustrated and miserable and just wanting to buy more books and shit, you know? Like, but that's probably it. Probably what I would tell people is buy books, get books, look at them, be inspired, learn about them, ask yourself, why did someone do something, the way they did? And also, why does some of the stuff that people did feel wrong to you? Like, why does some stuff resonate with you and others don't? What do you see when you squint your eyes and look on a page? Like, does it look ordered to you or not? Like, do you have a sense for that design? And what is beauty to you when it comes to a layouted page? Where's the balance and all of that? And then it will be different for everybody. Like I said, like these guys got me working on a rule book, and I never made a rule book before. I winged it, literally. And sometimes they were like, like, oh, you should do this more, like, like maybe this rule book did solve this problem like that, and that was great for me because I didn't know what to do with that. And there were one or two instances also, I don't remember what they were, where I was told by Tuomas, this is how you do it. Like, that's also something I'm gonna be absolutely honest, I didn't know that tables or something like that have to look like this in a certain way, because that's what people are used to look at, and that's where what they have experience with. And if you do it differently and really reinvent the wheel entirely, then that will just result in confusion.
Yeah.
And form follows function. If the function is that and that is the best way to do it, then we just do exactly the same. And that's what we did in these cases.
It's interesting when you're trying to convey information to people in a way that not just that they will read, but that they will remember. There really are those kind of essentially unwritten rules as to how it needs to be presented on a page or on a website or on a safety leaflet or a tourist guidebook. Like, they all follow a similar kind of, we need this to latch on to the person's brain and stick. So it's not a huge shock that the same thing applies to the use of tables and bullet points and things like that in a rule book.
I think to double down on the question about advice about getting into this and doing this, I think I could answer this as good as possible with what I just said. But it really, if you want to do something, I think the motivation, there are two good motivations to do anything that has to do with creation. The first one, in my opinion, is spite. If anyone tells you you can't do it, you should definitely do it. That has been my biggest motivator ever. Because I like to make people miserable. And the other thing, is if something you would like to have doesn't exist yet. My idea to make the first art book that I made was because the person didn't have an art book yet, but I wanted one. And I'm a collector first. I have hundreds of art books. It's my passion. I love everything about books. I bind them myself. I make sketchbooks for my friends and I give them away. Like, books are what I enjoy. My own YouTube channel is about looking through art books. I make my own art books, but I don't really talk about them much. I mostly talk about what other people do. And my favorite art books, or books in general, are the ones that people made themselves, not the ones where they went to a publisher and worked with them. I have a friend of mine, Iris Compete, for example, or if you look at the work from Viktor Kalvachev, like, there are certain people who have a graphic design background and are artists, and then they jump into it and they know exactly what they want. And these, to me, are the best books so far. So if we're talking motivation, and I think the motivation should be something like a certain kind of discipline that you bring into it, and also the motivation to fill in a gap of something that doesn't exist. When I made my magazine, I didn't want to make a second ImagineFX. That already exists. They made a good enough job for that. I wanted to do something else, which was an interview magazine, which didn't exist yet, about people that go to events and stuff like that. So look at what's missing. And art books in general are like a very small niche, but the reason why I want to make a course about, like, why I'm working on this course of how to make an art book and then put it on Kickstarter is because I want to see more art books.
Yeah.
There's no gain in it. It's just like the general thing. Like there's kind of a mission there. We with the direction that AI takes right now in just disrupting everything that has to do with creation, I really want to see more people just taking a leap of faith and create more and do things more and build a library, buy a vinyl record, be a librarian yourself, do something like that. I think that should be a nice motivation. That is a good reason to do what I'm doing.
Yeah. Be dictated to a little less by algorithms and companies.
Yes. Just do what you like. Just think about what you like and what you can do with that, you know?
Yeah. Definitely.
I think the miniature area, like working in like painting miniatures, I also am working with another company. It's called Mindworks, and I met this guy. His name is Matteo Di Diomede. From Italy. He's an amazing miniature painter and so dedicated in what he's doing. And the way that he's sculpting his figurines, and he makes this resin and looks at the colors that he's using, and I think mixing that too. Like, he's also one of those people, these people, and whose product essentially is good because that's what they want.
Yeah.
That should be the compass. Like, what do you want in the end? How should it be? And how does your expertise dictate what other people might like, you know? And then you build it, and they come.
Yeah. Trust yourself a little bit.
Yeah, seriously. I wish that intelligent people had the confidence of stupid people.
Yeah, that's actually everybody should have my confidence. Basically, I'm the stupid confident one. It's perfect. It works out well. But yeah, no, thank you so much for taking the time to chat. I really do want to do just a little series of videos onto the channel where people who have worked on the book and have, you know, strong experience and an interesting skill set have the opportunity to maybe talk to my audience, because I feel like the people who are sub to my channel are just curious people, and they want to know these things, and I think they'll really enjoy having heard from you, and your experience and your time on the book will speak to them, I think. So thank you so much.
Anytime. I enjoyed this very much. I could talk about this for hours. I think it took up months of my time, so there's so much to say.
Yeah, that's where it gets dangerous. I learned with the very first one I did was with Jared, who did the map. And we talked for hours, and I learned with that one. I was like, brevity, Aiden, brevity. You can bring people back and talk to them again, but take an hour out of somebody's day and then let them go.
Yeah, true.
Alrighty, we'll wave off to the camera anyway, folks. Thank you all so much for watching. Spiridon's channel and website will all be linked below in the description, so make sure you go and check out his work. Some really fascinating art books in his kind of portfolio section of the website that you might find yourself being terribly interested in, because I'm going to be ordering a few for sure.
Thank you so much for having me.